Hello and welcome to another edition of the Gridiron Review from our Glen Burnie studios right down the road from the home of the Gophers, who picked up a win this week over Southern in the season opener. Alongside Bill Wagner, I'm Pete Medhurst. Great to have you with us. As always, we kick off the football season, Bill, a little youth league style. Appreciate the folks from Old Mill sending some highlights over as they knock off Severn in some 10U action. And it's hard to believe, though, you know, every time we do the show, whenever we wrap up the last one in late November, right after the youth football championships, hard to imagine that we've cycled all the way back around and then football season is here again.
Right, and we love youth football, and they've been actually underway for quite some time. This was not the first week of youth football.
Second week. Yeah.
Second week. And we got to give a shout out to the Recreation and Parks Department. Jeff Porter, once again, is kind of the Rec and Parks director of Anne Arundel County Youth Football. And then we have the Anne Arundel Youth Football Association. Gentlemen like Jason Clark and Demetrius Ballard do a great job in terms of running that. It's a volunteer organization that works with Rec and Parks to administer youth football, and I think Anne Arundel County's got one of the best youth football programs in the whole state. I really do.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. Quite organized. When you show up on the weekends, as I did this weekend, I went out to Southern Middle School, where I went to middle school. It's great to see kind of a rebirth of football for SCYA.
Did you play your youth football at Southern Middle?
I played right there at Southern Middle School on that exact same field that they were playing
for
on this
UIC?
past week. For UIC, that's right.
No longer. So who plays there now?
SCYA plays there, and
Okay.
you know, it's to have seen the organizations football-wise through the years transition from UIC to SAA, and now, of course, SCYA. Great to see Mike Mulhern, Brian Nermy, a lot of the guys that are working hard down there to bring football back and keep a lot of those kids home. In fact, my next door neighbor, Devin Foote, he plays on the 12 and under team. Goes to school with my daughter at Southern Middle School, and they won their game on Saturday. Also stayed for some of the 14 and under action. This is the beauty of it. I turn around, and former Bulldogs Hunter Riggs, who played at Albright, Corey Makel, who played at Salisbury, Ike Riggs, who played with me at Southern. It was great to see all those guys
coaching
there. No, just watching the game. Just came
okay.
up to support the kids watching the game. And
because you also have a lot of former players from whatever school giving back as coaches.
Sure.
I would imagine a large number of the SCYA coaches are from either Southern or South River.
Yeah, and a lot of case too. What's interesting, Brian Aiken, who was a good, solid player at Southern, he's now one of the guys that heads up the organization over for Queen Anne's on the Eastern Shore, and they've put together a fine football organization that comes over and plays in Anne Arundel County instead of playing the Pop Warner style over on the shore. So congratulations to all the teams off to a good start. In fact, week 3 this was for many of the teams so far in Anne Arundel County youth football. And saw a good game between Cape and Southern's 14U, and then, of course, SCYA's 12U knocking off Gork on Saturday. And in our highlights, you'll see Old Mill, a winner over Severn. And I got to point out, in the 8U, you have to get out and see Brooklyn Park. They've got a couple of kids, one of which is nicknamed Joystick. He's that good offensively and defensively. My man Darian Maple's son, Darian, of course, used to play at Southern. Great to see him in the community, and great to see the kids excelling on the football field, because these are lessons they learn now that when they get to high school, when it becomes that much more serious, and obviously grades become a huge factor. They've already learned the discipline of those lessons of teamwork, and then obviously have to put that in with the schoolwork. And when we come up in a moment, we'll talk about our high school teams, which got off to their weekly debut this week as well. Plus, Bill and I will talk about Navy's season opening win over Holy Cross. They had a bye week this week. And look, it's okay to not buy Maryland in week 1 when they played Howard, because Howard's club is nowhere near as good as it was last year under Mike London. They now have a new situation because Coach London went on to William & Mary. But you must take Maryland seriously after they demolished Syracuse, who is expected to be a contender in the ACC. All that and more coming up on the Gridiron Review. You know, Bill, you mentioned in our previous segment, we were talking about community and alumni, and one of the great stories in the offseason was Mike Francis, former Meade Mustang, taking over at Meade and already observing what Mike has done. I'm not even talking about their football win over Annapolis this past week to get the season started at 28-20. But watching what Mike has done to engage the community there, to help get the community to take ownership of their high school football program and get involved and get former guys that went to Meade back involved. He's got a great coach and former Temple star, Tenardo Sharps, who of course was a great player in Anne Arundel County they're helping him run the offense. And just to see what Mike has done already, they've only played one football game. I'm not even worried about the football they're playing. To see Mike getting the community involved and asking them to take ownership of the product, pretty impressive undertaking what he's trying to do over there at Meade.
Well, I think it was a great move by Meade to hire an alum who played at Meade. Mike Francis was there when Chuck Markowitz was the interim coach. Jerry Mears was ill with cancer, and Chuck would end up basically being the interim coach that whole year, although he refused to say. I'll never forget covering a Meade game that season. It was the very first year I ever worked at the Capitol, and I went down and brand new rookie reporter, and I say to Chuck Markowitz, "You're the head coach?" And he says, "No, Jerry Mears is the head coach. He's just not here tonight. I'm filling in." But Mike Francis cares. He's invested. This is his community, his people. The very first thing he did was put together a staff comprised almost entirely of Meade graduates. You know, Tenard Sharps is the offensive coordinator. Several other well-known former Meade players are on the staff. They have pride in the school, and they are doing things to give the kids pride in the program. They had a very rigorous all-season conditioning program, had kids out there doing weights and all-season conditioning. John Blessing, who played at Meade at the same time that Mike Francis did, just donated money to cover the pregame meals for the entire season. And that's the kind of community support they're getting now that they have one of their own leading the program.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. And I think what's been important too, and we've seen some schools are starting to get it, using social media within the community as something good. I mean, obviously we know Twitter and Facebook and things of that nature, and with the kids now, I mean, as the father of an 11-year-old, I can tell you it's Snapchat and TikTok and all these different forms of social media, but using and reaching out within the community is a way to communicate with them to say, hey, this is what we're trying to do. We want all of you, this is an open invitation to all of you to come be a part of it, and using social media for good. Plus, we've also seen some people try to use that in a negative way as well. Mike actually had to come out and clarify some things, saying, hey, you know, if you've got any questions about people who are soliciting on behalf of our program, I'm fully available. You can find me in so many different ways.
Right.
Just reach out to me, because some people have tried to take advantage of that in the community as well. So big kudos there to Mike. They get the season opening win over Annapolis. And Bill, we noticed also this past week, because of the new scheduling formulas in Anne Arundel County, because everybody doesn't have to play Southern now, who's a 2A.
Right. Well, only 9 regular season games.
Right,
That's
only
the
9
big
regular
change.
season games too as well. You know, a lot of teams reached out into PG County this past week, and I was talking with some folks, you know, at the football games this past weekend, and I see Rob Elliott and Chesapeake go to Largo, win the game handily against the Lions. But we talked about, I was talking to a friend who's got a player in the Panthers program, which is the main feeder there in the Chesapeake, to see what Rob has done there. And again, that's another community that has bought in.
Yes.
And continues to buy in each year. We saw them win a playoff game last year. I mean, Bill, those were sentences we didn't talk about as late as 5 or 6 years ago, Chesapeake and playoffs and winning a playoff game.
Right.
But just to see that, and the fact that Chesapeake goes in, you know, into PG County and plays Largo and comes out with a dominant win this past week to open the season.
Very impressive. And we had mixed results out on the out-of-county front. North Point put it on Arundel. Potomac beat Old Mill or Broadneck. And then Frederick Douglass, which has been in the state championship, is a very good program, really took it to Old Mill. So it was kind of that. But then Northeast went out of county and won a game. So
South River went to Westminster and won.
Yep.
So that's a
kind
great
of mixed
win
results
for Eddie Dolce's team. And, you know, we talked about the Potomac game beating Broadneck. Josh Ehrlich, 21 of 33 in that game for 264 and had 4 touchdowns. Potomac scored the game-winning touchdown in the final minute. But you go play teams
and Andre
like that.
Woods, the wide receiver, had a big game as well. He was the recipient of most of the Josh Ehrlich passes and several touchdowns. And they just couldn't get any stops on defense when they needed them.
Yeah, and look, but you go out and play those kind of teams, it makes you better.
Yes.
You know, and I know people are going, Frederick Douglass is a 2A, but folks, it doesn't matter whether you're 1A. Look at Dunbar in 1A. Do you think any of the 4A schools want to play Dunbar?
Right.
No. Frederick Douglass in 2A, been a terrific program. Doesn't matter whether you're 1A, 2A. If my 11 can beat your 11, it doesn't matter what the classification is. And I know some folks in the Old Mill community might be a little upset because they're used to winning a lot of games, but Frederick Douglass is a good program. Simply got the best of Old Mill this past week. Also, as we mentioned, the South River win against
when their running back
Westminster,
had a huge outing.
You know, that is a huge win for the Seahawks. And there's a program, too, that when Eddie Dolch got there, he had some work to do, and he's done it in fine fashion to get South River going forward.
Right. Well, and they lost a very good running back that we talked about on a weekly basis here on the show. And then they had a new running back. I think he ran for 224 yards, Mr. Johnson.
Yep.
But, that was a tremendous start to the season for South River. And, they beat Broadneck in the playoffs last year. It was a big surprise upset after Broadneck had gone undefeated and really in dominant fashion through the regular season. And South River already making some noise that they could be a playoff team again.
Yeah, Delvin Johnson running for 227 yards in that game for the Seahawks. He also scored a touchdown, had 3 catches for 94 yards as well in the contest. You mentioned Northeast's win over Mount Hebron, and I don't know if it's something as simple as the new school, the new football stadium. I don't know if that's something as that simple, helping rejuvenate that program over there. But there just seems to be an awful lot more pride right now coming out of the Eagles program. More importantly, winning coming out of the Eagles program as they smash Mount Hebron to open the season.
Well, and I think head coach Brian Boblitz, who's a Pasadena guy and is invested in the community, and I think he's in his 5th or 6th season.
Seems to be a theme building here.
Yeah, he's in his 5th or 6th season at Northeast. He's committed. He's not going anywhere, and he's doing a terrific job. I really am impressed with Coach Boblitz and everything he does. And interesting thing at Northeast, they've got a freshman, a starting place kicker who is a female. Kayla
Alexander.
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought this
Bob
up.
Hoke did a big feature last week.
She made 5 out of 6 extra points this past week. I got a real problem here. And it's not with her playing football. But if you read Bob's story, she's not allowed to play high school soccer because of a contract with her club team. What are we doing here, Harry?
That stood out to me like a sore thumb. That is terrible. A club soccer program that forces a player to sign a contract saying they will not play high school soccer. That's why she's the kicking for Northeast.
And obviously Northeast football team's going to benefit because she can kick the bejeeber out of the football.
But how good would the Northeast girls soccer team could probably use her?
Yeah, she's a goalie.
That is outrageous to me. And
obviously plays goalie to high levels. She's playing on a travel team, makes her sign a contract. But come on, what are we
Clayton
doing here?
Culp and other, the department, Clayton Culp is the head of athletics and physical education for Anne Arundel County. He and his compatriots and everyone in the MPSSAA should be alarmed by this. A club soccer program telling a kid that they must sign a contract saying they will not play for their high school team. That's outrageous.
I completely agree. As soon as I read that, as happy as I was for her playing soccer, because I'm telling you right now, Carly Lloyd's going to kick in the NFL next year. Right. It's going to happen. Mark it down. I'm glad for Kayla that she had such a great debut for Northeast and a great debut, obviously, to the season for Tylee Coleman and the Eagles as they get the job done there. St. Mary's taking on Delaware's smallest school, Delmar. Delmar is good in everything. They are dominant in field hockey and pretty good in football as well. They get the best of St. Mary's in a great one, 42-35. Alex Wicks ran for 231 yards and 4 touchdowns, but the Saints still came up short. But, Bill, as they did last year, they started off 0-2 and they ended up winning the league.
Right. Well, and that I remember after they lost to Delmar in Game 2 and they had gotten beaten pretty handily in Game 1, I think by St. Albans or someone. It was a similar situation, and I thought, whoa, they might be in trouble. But Coach Jason Bedroni and his staff got it together, and they went on to be MIAA conference champions. So, these early season games are preparation for the conference schedule, and that's what St. Mary's is concerned about. And every team has a building stage. You've got to build. And like you said, Delmar is a solid program, always has been, dating back to the days of head coach Ron Dickerson, I believe that was him.
Correct, yeah.
So Delmar, losing to Delmar is nothing to be embarrassed there.
When we've seen here locally, obviously, over the last couple of years, the ascension of the St. Francis program, and they're ranked number 4 in the country in the USA Today right now, in that they used to play in the MIAA conference. That forced everybody else to try and get good in there. Well, Spalding has taken on that challenge. They're also playing some national folks. Bishop Moore out of Florida, always a well-known program. Well, Spalding went south and not only beat them, but destroyed them 56-14.
Right. And Spalding has got a very, very solid backfield. Jayon Venerable is already committed to Maryland, University of Maryland. He's a junior. He became the first class of 2021 commit. for Maryland, and we did a story about that in the Capitol. Then they've got Quentin Young is another outstanding tailback. I think they want Jayon Venerable to play on the defensive side as much as possible because he's projected to be a cornerback at Maryland, and so therefore, and they have Quentin Young, who, if you remember, his older brother Tyler Young was an outstanding football and lacrosse player at Arundel, went on to play lacrosse at Towson. That's his younger brother Quentin. Brian Young was a longtime coach in the Gork organization, and both his sons were outstanding athletes. And then Austin Tudis, the quarterback, is already got Division I offers. So Spalding is A-grade legit, and I guess the big news in the MIAA conference, last year they did not have a championship because of this controversy involving St. Francis. In fact, they awarded the championship to St. Francis because all the other schools
they don't want to play you, you take
they
it.
They forfeited it. Well, this year they are going to have a championship
Thank
again.
Goodness.
So that's good to hear. But Spalding is without question a top contender in the A conference.
Yeah, Kyle Schmidt's done a fine job there. And congratulations to them on the big win over Bishop Moore. Coming up, we're going to dive into the colleges. Maryland with a big win over Syracuse, and we'll look forward ahead to their big matchup with Temple this week. Navy with its second game of the year coming up with East Carolina on Saturday after a season-opening win over Holy Cross. Back with that in a moment on the Gridiron Review. Welcome back to the Gridiron Review. Bill, the first week for Maryland, they beat Howard. Everybody said it was Howard, and that's true because Howard, not even as good as they were last year under Mike London. But week 2, Maryland put it on Syracuse, and Syracuse had just come off of a shutout of Liberty. Liberty's got a great quarterback in Stephen Calvert. They can score, and Syracuse had shut them out. Well, the one thing we've seen from Maryland through the first 2 weeks, my goodness, they can score the football.
Oh, the offense.
I mean, it's been unbelievable.
They have a tremendous offense. I think the combination of Mike Loxley and what he brought, he was the offensive coordinator at Alabama and obviously brings a lot of the...
By the way, can we put the Mike Loxley, Josh Gaddis conversation to bed, please? Because one guy looks over his head at Michigan and the other guy is scoring 60 points a game at the University of Maryland. Just pointing that out.
Right, yeah, there was some controversy as to who was really responsible for the offensive success of Alabama. And in the end, I think Mike Loxley said, I'm the one that called the plays.
Right.
Period, end of story.
Look, but no, Mike was doing, though, what Nick Saban does. Mike has always deflected all of the credit throughout the staff. He said, our staff has done a fabulous job. It's only people that kept poking at Gaddis at Michigan before that stuff finally came out. And maybe Josh Gaddis got some of the Jim Harbaugh juice where he started talking about himself, and I don't know.
Well,
you saw Michigan play Army this week. Proof's in the pudding.
Right. Well, Mike Loxley also hired Scotty Montgomery, who was let go as head coach at East Carolina, but had a great reputation as an offensive coordinator from his days at Duke. And clearly, the Mike Loxley-Scotty Montgomery combination is proving wonders for Maryland, and their offense looks unstoppable. They had 60-some points at halftime against Syracuse, or 56. I can't remember the exact figure, but it was unbelievable. They're setting all sorts of records, and we'll see if they can keep it up. But they've got a great stable of running backs, Pete.
No question, led by Anthony McFarland.
Yep.
Zach Funk, the Damascus product, has also been running well for them over the first 2 weeks.
Tayon Fleet Davis.
But the one thing, look, when you can bring in a veteran quarterback like they did via transfer with Josh Jackson, that has meant, I think, an awful lot because you got a guy that's not going to freak out back there in any big situation now. I mean, obviously, this is going to be a tough Temple defense they're going to play this coming week because, oh, wait a minute, who's that on the horizon? Oh, yes, Mr. Franklin and Penn State. Talk about somebody that's not afraid to tell you how good they are. The folks at Penn State will tell you that. That's going to be a Friday night game in College Park, and that is going to be lit on the 27th. But Penn State's got to play Pitt this week. Maryland's got to get by Temple before that game. Boy, if they're both undefeated going into that game, the Loxley, Franklin thing, because you could argue Mike should have been the coach a long time ago here.
Right, well, they're
both of them, Mike or Franklin, both.
Maryland could have avoided the Randy Edsall debacle followed by the DJ Durkin debacle had they just hired Mike Loxley instead of Randy Edsall. So in the end, they got back to Loxley, but they lost about 8-9 years in the process of wandering in the desert again. But Mike Loxley's doing a great job, and again, kind of what we talked about, a guy that loves the University of Maryland. He'd been there as an assistant on multiple occasions. He's from the D.C. area. This is his school. There's pride in the school. It makes a big difference, I feel.
No, I don't think there's any question about that. A guy that's bought into his school is Ken Niamato-Lolo, 22 years overall at the Naval Academy between either being an assistant and now obviously the head coach. And good reviews for their season opening win over Holy Cross. And the one thing that we had not seen during Ken Niumatalolo's tenure was overwhelming turnover in terms of the coaching staff. This is the first year we've seen that, and at least from the first 4 quarters of football we've watched, what they were looking for, they showed you in that first game. A little bit more aggression on defense, and obviously the opponent means something, Holy Cross. It's going to be a much tougher test this week when they get into conference play with East Carolina.
Right, well, a 3-10 record made Ken Niumatalolo do quite a bit of evaluation and reassessment, and his decision was that he cleaned house on the defensive side of the ball and brought in an entire new staff. Brian Newberry is the defensive coordinator, and I have been very, very impressed with Brian Newberry on a lot of levels. And he wanted to bring some of his assistants from Kennesaw State, which is understandable. He's going to implement his system. He wants some of his guys to help do that. And then they had some other turnover, just natural turnovers. How did Sione pronounce his last name? Puaha. Sione went to Utah, his alma mater, so they had to get a new.
Mike Judge went to the Dolphins.
Right, new D-line coach. So there were some of the turnover was inevitable. Others was caused by Coach Niumatalolo. And then, obviously, in addition to having a new defensive scheme, I think that they have, made a decision to get back to their roots of running triple option football and also have added a run and shoot scheme. Now, I don't think we saw a whole lot of the run and shoot schemes that they're talking about implementing against Holy Cross. I think you're going to start to see a little bit more against East Carolina, and it'll be interesting to see how that develops. And Pete, I think we both agree that Malcolm Perry looked outstanding. Just so much more like a quarterback, in command, making good decisions, and I think that'll make a big difference for the Mids.
Yeah, 6 of 9 in the season opener versus Holy Cross. Big completion of Michael Cooper, who's going to be a star at the wide receiver position.
And also a good job dealing the ball off. I mean, Malcolm Perry.
He only carried the ball 10 times.
That's what I think. Last year, Malcolm Perry would carry the ball 25 times, whereas the fullbacks and slot backs did not carry it much at all. In the season opener, complete opposite. A lot of carries for the fullbacks and slots. And Malcolm, he ran when he had to run. And it's going to make Malcolm better because now that they respect that he can distribute the ball to his other weapons, he's going to find more openings.
All right, we come back. Season opener for the Redskins and the Ravens. Woo-hoo-hoo-hoo. Lamar Jackson. If you had him in fantasy football,
he looked pretty darn good.
You were a winner.
Yes,
we'll talk about that when we return on the Gridiron Review. Welcome back. If I'd have told you that Case Keenum for the Redskins was going to throw for 380 and 3 scores, Lamar Jackson was going to throw for 5 touchdowns, even Robert Griffin III was going to throw a touchdown pass. My man, RGIII, if you follow him on Twitter, he liked my tweet.
Did he?
He liked my tweet. I said, he's back in the scoring column.
He likes you.
RG3, and he liked my tweet. Thank you, Robert. Appreciate that. What a performance by the Ravens. I mean, look, people, this is what bothers me. People who talk about pro football, who don't watch college football, who have no file on Lamar Jackson. Dude won the Heisman Trophy. He threw for 9,000 yards at Louisville in 2.5 seasons and 69 touchdowns. It's not like he was a total neophyte throwing the football. But what the Ravens have done, they have formed the package that goes to his passing strengths. Oh, by the way, Marquis Brown is drafted, one of the fastest
Hollywood
guys
Brown,
in the draft.
He's already looking good.
Jerry Sandusky, I love you, but please just call him Marquis Brown once. At least the first time, call him Marquis, and then call him Hollywood or whatever you want to call him. But his name is Marquis.
Right.
I'm sure Mom would like Marquis at this point. But, the fact that they were that lethal offensively, they've got the veteran Mark Ingram as well running the football. Pretty good combination in week 1. And let's face it, the people in Miami, that club may go 0-16.
That did not look like a pro football team. The Miami Dolphins
They're
did not
tanking
look
for
like
Tua.
they belonged in the NFL.
They're tanking for Tua, but my goodness, they may go 0-16 playing like that.
Right. Well, let's talk about it with Lamar Jackson. First of all, last year, Joe Flacco was the quarterback. Lamar Jackson wasn't even the backup at the beginning of the year. He got very little reps with the offense. When things went south with Joe Flacco and they installed Lamar as the quarterback, there was only so much he could do. Mm-hmm. He had not been getting the proper practice reps with the first unit, and that's why you saw the offense you did, which was it got him into the playoffs. To his credit, Lamar Jackson worked very, very hard in the offseason. He looks like a completely different quarterback in terms of throwing the ball. Last year he had a little bit of a hitch. He threw too much sidearm, not enough. He looks completely different throwing the ball, and they said that all throughout training camp. Any reporter that went to training camp said he looks way better throwing the football, more comfortable passing, more comfortable in the pocket, and you now have a major weapon. We're talking Michael Vick, Redux here with a guy that is a threat to run at any time. He can destroy you running the ball, but now he's also proven that he can throw downfield to, as you mentioned, new weapons that they have provided him. Mark Andrews, the tight end, pretty darn good. Mark Ingram, as you mentioned, outstanding running back. They work him with Gus Edwards, who's a big, powerful inside guy, and Ingram can get the edge. So Ravens, very, very impressive. Defense played well, but we don't know. Defense was not tested by Ryan Fitzmagic of the Dolphins or any of his non-weapons.
No. Give me one of AAYFA's best 14-year-old teams. We'll go play better offense than the Dolphins did.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
People are saying that Jay Gruden is the worst halftime adjustment coach
in the
NFL.
First of all,
you're a Redskins fan.
I'm glad you asked this question. I tweeted about this Sunday during the games. Okay, this crap about halftime adjustments is one of the worst cliches in the history of sports.
But Pete, they look great in the first half.
But listen to me. Listen to me. Every drive in the second half, they only had the ball 4 times.
Yes.
Okay. The one time they scored on the final drive, the 2-minute drive, to make it 32-27. The second drive, they should have scored because Jay Gruden went right back to a play that was successful in the first half. Terry McLaurin on a toast to the post. He was wide open. Case Keenum overthrew it. If they score there, it's a different ball game. Okay? Right. If you have something working, you don't adjust it.
No.
If you're up 20-7 and your offense is killing the other team, you don't adjust it. You stay with what works.
Yeah, the truth of the matter is Philadelphia came out with renewed energy and effort and played very well.
They just wore the Redskins defense down. They had the ball in the whole second half.
To me, the biggest concern is the Redskins because the defense, what we heard all preseason, that this was going to be a dominant defense. And they
defensive line, which is supposed to be the money guys, they didn't play great. No. Jonathan Allen got hurt, and it went downhill from there. Linebackers, Bostic and Holcomb played very well, though, for the Redskins.
Right, and the Eagles had several lengthy drives. I mean, 12 plays.
9 minutes, 1 minute, 9 minutes on one drive, 8 minutes on the other. Jay Gruden was right. We didn't have the ball in the second half.
Right.
Couldn't get the Eagles off. He couldn't get the Eagles off on third down.
Right.
And when they had the ball, it was holding, 72 on the offense. Donald Penn, penalty after penalty after penalty. So when you're 3rd and 25, I don't know what you want Jay Gruden to call.
Here's a couple more questions for you since you are a Redskins fan and know this team very, very well, and you work in that market.
Yep.
You hear the Redskins calls that come into 106.7 The Fan on a regular basis. Is Trent Williams coming back, number one? And what's going to happen with Adrian Peterson?
Adrian Peterson is going to be active this week because Darius Geis had an MRI on the other knee, not the one that was hurt that caused him to miss last year, but the other knee now.
No.
So he's going to miss a couple of weeks. Nothing torn or anything, but he's going to miss a couple of weweeks. So Adrian Peterson is going to be active this week. He'll be toting the pill. I think that's going to get Trent Williams back because that's his boy, AP, another Oklahoma guy. It comes down to this. When you're making $13 million a year, you divide that because NFL paycheck is over 17 weeks.
Yeah.
So you do 17 into 13 million. Add up what that is per game. He's already missed one game check. Okay? He wants to get another game check. Guys get paid from September to the end of December. That's the only pay window they have in the NFL. Guys aren't getting paid in the offseason. September to December, 17 pay weeks. He's already missed one paycheck. So if he wants to continue to get copious amounts of large green dollars in his bank account, He'll show up at some point. Right. Maybe it's this week.
Right.
Especially now that his boy Adrian Peterson is going to be toting the pill. I'm sure AP's getting on. AP's already got the phone now.
I need you.
AP's already got the phone now. Texted him. Come on, big fella. Right. I'm going to be getting the ball this week. I need you back here in D.C. So we'll see. Redskins play the Dallas Cowboys, who looked magnificent opening day. Boy. Dak Prescott threw for 401 in that one. So we'll see if Redskins could play well again and be 0-2. 32-27 against the Eagles on the road. There's nothing shame about that. But now you got to host the Cowboys, and that stadium's probably going to be 60-40, 70-30 Dallas fans. It's going to be incredible to see how many Redskins fans show up for this thing on Sunday. It really will. Because lately, it's been a lot more of the other fans.
Well, we all remember the last game of the regular season last year when it was Philadelphia Eagle Town in FedEx Field.
There was as many people in this room with me and Bill as there were at FedEx Field last year for the season finale. That'll do it for our first show of the year. As always, we appreciate you coming back each and every fall and watching with us here. Appreciate Marky Mark and all of his hard work on the other side of the glass. For Bill Wagner, I'm Pete Medhurst. Thanks for joining us this week on the Gridiron Review.